Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered.
Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Chambers. Welcome, and I hope wherever you are, you're safe and healthy and ready for a good dose of travel talk. Today we're going to be discussing, is the risk worth the reward to travel? Things we need when we travel or don't need. And also traveling to a city in my own backyard, Dallas, Texas. But stick around to the end of the show and hear the top 10 myths that people think about Texas. So traveling has become kind of a risk at this point. I know everyone is on edge having to deal with COVID-19, and we're all on thinking, is traveling really the best thing for us? Well, we're going to talk about that. You know, traveling is not really a question of whether we want to or don't want to, is if we should or shouldn't, in my opinion. People are going to travel. I mean, it's just a fact. People want to travel. They're going to travel. Even during a pandemic, we're stir crazy. We've been cooped up inside, our apartments, our houses, wherever we are. We've been cut off from seeing family and friends and having experiences and being out and about. So I know that people are itching to get out there. But the real question is that we have to ask, to travel or not to travel? That is the question for this summer. For the latest information on traveling during the coronavirus outbreak, make sure you visit the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, and the World Health Organization. So just make sure that you're checking and researching before you go on a trip. Things that are complicated right now about travel is pretty much everything. Everything about traveling is very difficult. Whether you're booking a hotel stay, whether you're trying to find transportation, whether you're weighing the options of where to go. But people will be traveling. According to AAA, traveling will have about over 700 million people this summer traveling. That's what it's projected to be. That's from July 1st through September 30th, roughly. And that is down slightly from last year, but the numbers are kind of staggering to me. If you look from July 1st to September 30th of 2019, there was a little over 800 and about 28 million people, according to AAA statistics, that were traveling during that time. So let's look at some of the ways people were traveling. So last year, about 700 million people were traveling by car. Okay, that number this year is down about 3%, so a little over 680 million people are choosing to drive or travel in their car. Air travel was through the roof last year at this time. I mean, it was about almost 60 million people were traveling by air. And, of course, with health safety and things like that, traveling by air has gone down significantly. I mean, down almost 75%. I mean, but there are still people that are gonna fly. 15 million are projected to fly between July 1st and September 30th, which is still a lot considering everything going on. And then if you look at, rail cruises and other things, of course, cruise lines shut down right now. Who knows when those are going to open up. But it is opening the door for the river cruises. But those large cruise ships are not going anywhere, so that will take a hit. But any other travel type of or form of travel transportation is down about 85%. I mean, last year there's about a little over 60 million people were traveling by, either cruise line or rail or some other form. That's down big time to about like 9 million people, roughly estimated this year. So, I mean, you're looking at, a little over 100 million people less traveling this year, but still, considering everything going on, that's a lot of people that are traveling. So just make sure that you're also checking, the state regulations and everything else, doing your research before you go. I can't say that enough. It's just a really big thing to make sure that you're looking at, because you never know. I mean, these times are very uncertain. But I do want to talk about that. I mean, we're looking at traveling now as it's always been a luxury, but I'm considering this. I'm posing the question, are we the Clark W. Griswolds right now forcing a trip no matter what? We're going to get that trip in. We're going to get away. It's just we're determined. And for those of you that don't know the reference, if you've never seen National Lampoon's Vacation, European Vacation, Christmas Vacation, Vegas Vacation, those are movies, starring Chevy Chase. And it's just his personality is he wants to create the perfect vacation and this unforgettable trip. And no matter what, it's going to happen. Painstakingly or not, it's going to happen. And so that's what I kind of figure. That's what I think that we feel like right now. We're the Clark W. Griswolds of vacation travel at this point. We've got to get away. Oh, my word, we're going to make this happen. So I don't necessarily look at that as a great thing. I don't look at it as a negative thing either. I mean, you have to make up your own mind whether you think it's right for you to travel. Personally, for me, I don't think that we should be forcing this trip of travel. I understand the need to get away. Man, wouldn't I love to? I mean, I miss it dearly because we all need a vacation. And that's something that we can never stop saying. We will always say, oh, I need a vacation. But why force it right now? I mean, we want to get things back to where they were, where we don't have to worry about a pandemic and things like that. And so traveling right now is a huge risk that may affect other things in the long run. And just because you're, in your own car or you feel that you are taking the most safe precautions when traveling doesn't mean that it's always the best thing. Right now I feel like a field mouse when it comes to travel. Like I'm ready to explore and I want to get out there, but the second that something comes up, it's going to spook me and I'm going to get right back into hiding. Normally I feel like an otter. I know it's kind of weird to compare myself to animals, but otters are super playful, go-getters, kind of carefree. Like, we're going to have fun. We're going to do this. Very adventurous. That's me. That's normally how I am. But, with everything happening, I find myself being more of that field mouse. I'm someone who supports travel, so I personally don't think that we should be forcing any travel right now. Most people want to be isolated. And so they're going to look for national parks, campsites, beaches, things of that nature. But you need to be aware that we're not being those Clark Griswolds right now of travel. You need to ask yourself a few questions before you take your trip. And these are questions that are posed by the CDC. Number one, is COVID-19 spreading where you are going? You can get infected while traveling. Just realize that. Number two, is COVID-19 spreading in your community? If you live in an area where it's very high, and this coming from someone in Texas where the cases are starting to go up and up and up, it's extremely high in my community. So for me to take a trip, I feel would not be the responsible decision to make right now. But you need to ask yourself that. Is your community, does it have a high risk right now? And number three, who are you traveling with? Are you traveling with people that you've been quarantined with? Are you traveling with those that you haven't been quarantined with? I mean, that is a big question. Also, are you traveling with people that are put at high risk? Because it doesn't have to be someone that has had the virus or doesn't have the virus, but could be potentially the possibility of a high-risk case of getting the virus, which then could affect everybody that you're traveling with, plus those that are around you wherever you are traveling. So that's a question you need to ask. Does the state or local government where you live at or the destination require you to stay at home for 14 days after traveling? So some states have restrictions about those that are traveling to them. Example, if you're coming from California, New York, Louisiana, states like that, going to New York or some of the East Coast states, you will be quarantined for 14 days when you get there. So just know that if you only have 14 days for your vacation, or you were planning a trip to say, we're only going to be gone for a week, and you travel to one of these locations where they make you stay quarantined for 14 days, then all you're doing is going somewhere to be quarantined again and then having to basically come back if your time that you had for that vacation is up. So just make sure that you are checking wherever you go onto each state if you're traveling domestically. Most countries right now in Europe and other places are not allowing Americans to travel because of the cases rising so quickly in the country right now. So you need to make sure that you do all that research. It's really important. I mean, you don't want to waste all that time, energy, and money and then realize that, I can only get a refund, or I lost all this money for a trip I booked because I didn't look ahead. And these are just real questions that we have to ask right now when we're traveling. I mean, you have to keep a couple things in mind. If you're traveling by airplane, one, you're going to have a mask to travel, and expect a lot of questions. You have to expect a lot of questions. I've been told by several people who have gone to the airports that traveled for a necessity for work that they were asked an abundance of questions over and over and over again. It was like having multiple security checkpoints asking you, how are you feeling? Have you been in contact with someone? Taking temperatures? They said there was just a plethora of questions that they were asked. And so not only when you go through the normal security, you're going to get scanned, that you're going to have to go, and they have several other checkpoints that they will ask you. And, of course, now you have to have a mask to travel currently right now. Bus is not really recommended. I don't really recommend, just because you're in so close quarters, and I don't feel that many of the buses and companies are taking that step to really social distance. They're letting everyone make up their own mind, which, let's be honest, I mean, we all have our own perceptions of what is safe to us, and it's different from the next. That's kind of the same point of me talking about traveling right now during the pandemic, because you have your own standards of safety. I'm willing to take this risk. Well, this person is not willing to take this risk, and leaving that up to people who have the big difference there, the gap, can lead to a lot of discord and many things that, and personally, I think is kind of an unsafe way, because we all think that we know better, but some of us don't pay attention to what's going on with the CDC or the doctors and people that are recommending and what they're recommending. So I think it's really important that you really weigh the risks and the rewards of traveling before you decide to book. And bus is not one of those that I recommend. You are in extreme close proximity. And even if they do it every other row, it's like airplane, you're still in a confined space. So even if you wear a mask, I mean, it's just something that you have to consider. But it's not one that I recommend. And buses, in my experience, having traveled on buses a few times, don't tend to be taken the precautions to be as cleanliness as some of the other forms of transportation. I think that they have made larger steps, of course, with everything going on, but I don't think they're quite at that point yet. A lot of people also, we talked about this with some friends, RV travel, that's just a big thing. A lot of people are looking at RVs. But you have to also think about who you're renting the RV from, what company you're getting the RV from. And not only once you get the RV, even if you're, you feel safe, you're quarantined inside, it's sanitary, you think about all the stops that you make, the parks that you stay at, things like that. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. The last thing I want to mention is hotel versus Airbnb. Cleanliness versus the unknown. More people versus less. It's just one of those things you have to weigh. You think about that. There's a lot more people at a hotel, but it might be more cleanly than someone's home. Or maybe you trust that someone's home is a lot more cleanly than people aren't traveling there. So you have less people to deal with, but you have to take the risk of, did they sanitize things the proper way? For those budget vacationers out there, this is one that will probably weigh on you a little bit more. You need to make sure that you look into that and research where you're staying and ask lots of questions just to make sure. That's the only thing that I can really recommend as far as that goes, because I know we all love our Airbnbs. Well, stay tuned for some travel purchases that last year would have seemed somewhat ridiculous coming up here on the Travel Podcast.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Travel Podcast. We just finished talking about, is the risk worth the reward? Is it safe to travel right now? Is it even worth taking that trip? And who's really taking the trips? Make sure you stay tuned for the end of the show when I give my top 10 myths about Texas. You don't want to miss that. In this segment, we're going to be talking about things that we need when we travel and things that we never thought we needed when we traveled. It's always been very interesting how times have changed. And we can say times have changed. That includes the purchases we make before traveling on a trip. Some have held the test of time, let's just say that. Passport, wallet holders, sunglasses, travel journals. Yes, some people still travel journal. I can't say that I'm one of them, but I know many people who do. Good walking shoes. Those are all things that we know before we take a trip we're going to need. There's several others, but we're going to talk about a couple that may seem odd for those of you that are a little bit older or have been traveling a lot longer. And for those that are the extreme travelers or continue to travel, you obviously change with the times because you have to. And those that use their job as traveling or those that just vacation, you're going to see that your needs are very, very different. But many of these items that I'm going to talk about are things that today we think of as essential items that we need, not just for travel, but for everyday life. So let's get to it. What suitcases are items that we should bring, okay? Obviously, we all know that we want a backpack of some kind, a carry-on. Maybe not a backpack, some kind of carry-on bag for the plane or something that you can bring your things on the plane. Typically, electronics. Most planes now, or even trains and other forms of transportation that are not your own, even if you're in your own, have so much electronics that it's ridiculous these days. But you still bring your headphones and all the chargers that you need and everything like that. But a carry-on is essential. Carry-on is really essential. I personally think it's the most important piece of luggage. Not the backpack per se. I always love carrying a backpack, but the carry-on itself, to me, is the most essential piece of luggage that you can bring because I always get on the plane with that. I always make sure that any essential things that I need are with me on the plane. Not saying that checking a bag is a bad thing. I've checked bags many of times. I've had my bag lost in all the years of traveling, maybe twice, I think. Two times I've had my bag that I didn't know what happened to it, and it took, the first time I think it took a week before it got back to me. The second time it was a few days and I had to go pick it up. It's not a fun experience when the airline loses your bag, and it's not their intention to lose your bag. But when you are traveling, you want to have those essential items that you can, or at least a change of clothes, something that will get you through a day or two if something like that happens. So I personally think that a carry-on is the most essential piece of luggage to bring on a trip. Your backpack being second, in my opinion. And the other thing is, I also only bring a carry-on at all if it's possible. Like, I don't check a bag. If I can bring everything, if I can fit it in a carry-on, I bring the carry-on. Now, I know that there are airlines that you have to pay if you have like the most basic economy, or you're traveling on a airline like Spirit or something like that. You have to pay extra for certain amenities. But if you can, I think it's completely worth it. I absolutely think it's completely worth it. So you should absolutely look into that. Chargers. The world of chargers and electronics. It's just something that we need because we all have our life on that cell phone, right? Most of us do. Other electronics used to be travel adapters, for plugs if you're traveling out of the country. That used to be the most essential electronic thing that you would bring on the trip. You weren't worried about charging your cell phone because you'd have a phone card to use whatever card in the country. I don't know if a lot of the younger listeners are like, what's a phone card, But I'm not even that old. I used to have phone cards when I traveled when I was younger. But now, of course, with the world of cell phones, you have your cell phone. It's fantastic. You don't have to worry about that. But then you do have to pack your chargers, no matter what you're using it for, whether it's just you're using it for maps or your scheduling or your credit cards and things are on it, because you can put everything on your cell phones these days. iPads, another big thing I see people traveling with all over the place. You don't want that tiny screen on the airplane or whatever screen size that they have. You want to use your own. Plus, you can put your own movies and things that you want to watch or use on your iPad versus having to use the onboard entertainment of whatever they provide. So I totally get that. But iPads have become a huge thing to travel, especially if you have children. For all those families out there, I know my brother has kids, and when they travel, using an iPad is like a lifesaver for him. It's one of the best things ever created in his mind, because he can give his 4-year-old, or I think now he's 4, but at the time he would give his 2 or 3-year-old an iPad, and they would just play games and watch movies and just be entertained for hours. I mean, they went on road trips to see family, across country, and he said his kids were good for a couple solid hours, and then they would get a chance to stop and stretch their legs and get something to eat. So it was very good for them. Another thing is noise-canceling headphones. These are fantastic if you can't afford to have them because they're getting ridiculous in price, but they're wonderful for flights. It drowns out all that airplane or bus sounds, and you can just kind of go into your own zone, or if you're really working on something for something else for any other reason, they're great to have. It's just something that we never would have thought of as an essential, but now people consider those type of headphones like an essential for travel. If you're trying to sleep, they put on sounds and help drown out the travel noises so they can get some rest on long trips. So I understand the need for it. I don't consider it an essential, but it is something that is wonderful to have. The other thing is that we have to have multiple cameras these days. There's so many people I've seen with multiple cameras. You have your GoPro, you have your cell phone, you have your Canon or Sony or whatever your ridiculous telephoto lens camera is, and you use them all. But you have to have multiple cameras these days because of whether you're vlogging or just wanting to record your trip in a different way. You want to get those really great shots, but then you use your phone for everything, or you make sure you have the GoPro so that when you're doing adventure stuff like whitewater rafting or something around water or something crazy where you don't want to break or lose your other camera, they're just good to have. So again, I understand for those adventurers that those are needed or wanted, but it's not a necessity. But it's just, you would think that you only need one camera. But that's not the case these days. You need multiple cameras, apparently, to travel. The other thing that shocked me when I talked to a couple people was drones. Drones have become something that people are traveling with. They're making them smaller and smaller, so people are using drones to get great footage. Again, if you're traveling for work or you're a travel vlogger, someone maybe with National Geographic, or you're needing those really great shots, drones are a work essential. But I'm seeing more and more people travel with drones just for recreation to be able to get all of those fun pictures and things like that. And not every place allows you to fly drones. That's the other thing. But they have become something where it's more common to see in an airport with someone traveling that has a drone, which I never would have thought. That's just something I never would have thought. Wi-Fi hotspots are another thing. You never would have thought that you needed to make sure you had a Wi-Fi hotspots. When you go somewhere, most places in the world today have Wi-Fi or have internet that you have ways of connecting to. But for some reason, we just feel more comfortable having our own Wi-Fi hotspot, just in case that we go somewhere and there's no Wi-Fi, there's no internet. That is kind of crazy to me. I understand the need for it, again, if you're in a work situation. But if you're traveling somewhere where there's a chance that there's no internet and no Wi-Fi to connect to, I think that's a great thing. I mean, that's the kind of the point of traveling. I don't think we need to make sure that we're obsessing about that. Now, if you're somewhere where you're absolutely needing or using your phone constantly all the time, I understand this next one, and that is phone chargers. Portable phone chargers are something, since we use our phones all the time, that I would consider an essential thing, especially when we're using our phones to help with check-ins for tickets and bookings and things like that. Having your own separate phone charger just in case there's not a chance to charge your phone. You don't want your phone dying and needing information that you can't get off your phone. So I really recommend that. That is something I wholeheartedly agree with. The other thing is, and this is in electronics, compression socks. Compression socks are an amazing thing to have. I have a pair. My wife actually got them for me when we were traveling, and they're great for long trips, not only on flights, but car trips or anything where you're sitting for long periods of time. People ask, what are compression socks? They're hefty socks. They can keep your feet warm, especially if you're traveling on flights. It gets cold at night on those airplanes. But it keeps blood circulating. It's good for your circulation. Okay, not only are you supposed to get up and stretch every few hours or, do some exercises in your seats, which many people don't realize, but these compression socks help keep that blood circulation so, you don't swell, you don't have any problems when you travel. So they're an amazing thing to have. I recommend getting a pair of compression socks for anyone when you're traveling. And like I said, traveling in 2020 has brought new changes. If you're traveling, you have to be taking precautions to stay safe. You need to protect yourself. If you do, these are new items that people may have had before, but now it's looked at as a necessity. Hand sanitizer. I personally don't trust every hand sanitizer that's out there. I'd like to think and be optimistic about seeing hand sanitizer and being like, that's great, I can use that. But having your own hand sanitizer that you know is effective is pretty much essential these days to have. I consider that something that everyone needs to have. Just a little bottle on you or when you're traveling, because you never know what's available to you or where you are. That's number one. A mask or face shield. Most forms of transportation are requiring you to have a mask or a face shield right now in travel. I think it's something that we are going to be looking at as an essential travel purchase. We're going to need to have a face mask to wear on the plane or on a train or bus or if we're traveling in a large group with things. I think that when you're confined to closed spaces for traveling going forward, a face mask is going to be a requirement. I think that that's the movement that we're moving into with that. And I think it's a great thing to have. I have several. You can get them, and they're not as inconvenient as people think, especially when they're keeping other people safe and honestly keeping you somewhat safe as well. But face masks are a big thing to have. Those are two of the recommended basic things to be able to pack. But there is one that I came across that I thought was really, really fascinating that was pointed out to me. It's basically a travel disaster kit. That's what I'm comparing this to. So you have your hurricane kits and all your other natural disaster kits and things like that. This is the travel disaster kit, in my opinion. The company is called Travel Clean. They started in 2014 and created the Travel Clean Kit. That's right, the Travel Clean Kit. A kit designed to keep germs of others off you. That's basically what this kit is. Like I said, a travel disaster kit. So what comes in this kit? Well, I'll tell you. It comes with a disposable seat shield made from recalled fabric. It comes with a surgical face mask, disposable rubber gloves, and hypoallergenic booties, plus 4 hand sanitizing wipes. Now, you can order these with a single pack or up to 24 packs for travelers, and they start at $25 per pack. They also say they're for one-time use only. But if you have a rental car, it's recommended that you can use the seat shield for the entire duration of your rental, as long as no one else is using that. So there you go. You have your own travel disaster kit. If you are in that mood to travel and you feel like, I need something to protect myself, this is one thing that you can use, and I recommend it. Only $25. After the break, I'm going to talk about traveling here in my own backyard to Dallas, Texas. You don't want to miss it.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hey guys, welcome back. Brian Chambers here. We were just talking about things that we use now for travel that we consider an essential and things that we might need to have going forward in the future. As I was mentioning earlier, I live in Texas, and we don't take advantage sometimes of places that are close to us when we travel. So for those of you that have never been to Texas, I'm going to give you a little bit of taste. I live in Houston, but I do have family in Dallas, and it's always a treat to go up and visit them. So for those of you that are considering a trip to Dallas, Texas, I'm going to talk about a couple of great things that you don't want to miss, some places you should go, and a couple of my recommendations. So let's dive right in. A big attraction that everyone might know of but doesn't really ever consider when traveling to Texas is going to the 6th floor Dealey Plaza. And for those of you that don't understand what that is, some of you might know that as the former Texas School Book Depository building. That's right. Anyone that knows their history knows that that was where JFK was shot, or the building from which he was shot at. So you can go. It's one of the most visited historic sites. The sixth floor museum at the plaza, it chronicles the life and death of the legacy of JFK, of John F. Kennedy. The museum is in the former, like I said, Texas School Book Depository building, where you can see evidence of a sniper, the assassination attempts. There's videos and documents and things all over the place. It's a really very educational and wonderful visit, regardless of whether you're a history buff or not. I think it's just really important. Much of the exhibit space looks at it as if it was in the 1960s, which is really, really neat. Like I said, the highlights include the sniper's perch, the FBI model used by the Warren Commission, an original teletype machine that first transmitted news of the president's death, Oswald's wedding ring, historic films, photos, and a whole lot more. I mean, it's just, you're going to spend a minimum of an hour on the tour, which you can get an audio for that, or you can go and just, if you like to read and see things on your own, you can do that as well. So it's something that you don't want to miss. Admission is something that you can't just walk up and get it that day. It's recommended that you go online to get tickets prior to going. They're not open on Thanksgiving and Christmas, but usually open all the times after that. And if you're looking for tickets, you can go on jfk.org. And again, I highly recommend getting tickets prior to. Otherwise, you need to get there early and get in line, because they can only let in a certain amount of people at a time. And it is a very popular place to visit when you're in Dallas, and it's just always packed. But once you get your tickets, you can always check out you can check out the plaza, walk around downtown. There's all kinds of wonderful things if you have to kill time around the area in downtown Dallas. You know, they have an X on the road right where JFK was shot, so it's really kind of neat to see that. And the three roads, or the three fork right there, the roads that go through, it's kind of a neat little area where you can walk around and see different things about the city, and there's little historic markers that you can walk around. So it's a lot of fun. It's educational, and I think it's just really important. Another thing that if you've never been to Dallas, you should check out is the South Fork Ranch. And it's not in Dallas itself. It's about 30 minutes, about a 30-minute drive. So if you don't have a way to get there, if you didn't rent a car or you don't have someone with a car, you can Uber. It's not super expensive, or get a ride share up there. But it is a lot of fun, and especially for those that know why South Fork Ranch is popular. And for those of you on the younger generation, I'm going to educate you just a little bit. The history of South Fork Ranch began in 1978, and that is when Lorimar Production chose the North Texas Showplace as the site for the CBS TV series Dallas. And if you haven't heard of Dallas, it is a widely popular show. It ran from 1978 to 1991. That is a long time. That is a long time. Not only that, they did a reboot of it later with some of the original members of the cast. So Dallas has been around a very long time. So if you don't know it, I'm sure you've heard of it. But that was the site that they used to film the show. That show, it was a hit series. I mean, millions of viewers across the United States watched it in at least 95 countries. That's how popular that show was. I mean, that's insane. And it's a really neat place to go. You can tour the mansion. You can tour the site and all the areas and see the pool and where things happen and hear all the history of the house itself. You know, interesting fact about the house, that it was privately owned, and originally they didn't allow any shooting inside. So a lot of the shots that you see were inside the house on the show was on a soundstage in Los Angeles, and the other outside things, pool shots, driveways, all those were shot around the property. So it's kind of neat, but it's a really nice, lovely area to go to, and if you love Dallas, it's something you don't want to miss. You know, Dallas also has a great theater district, so if you're in the mood to catch a show, or you can go to the Winspear Opera House if that's your thing. There's amazing performances that are always around, so check websites and concert listings to see if you're traveling there and you want to do that, if that's really important to you. that's something that I always love, is going to the theater. The other thing, I didn't get a chance to do this for many trips when I went up there, and I finally did, and it was a wonderful experience going to the Dallas Arboretum and Botanical Gardens. It's really a beautiful area. It's a nationally acclaimed 66-acre display. It's a display garden featuring floral displays all year long. That's right, all year long. It was named one of the most breathtaking gardens in the world by Architectural Digest. Dallas Blooms Festival boasts over 500,000 spring blooming bulbs, 3,000 azaleas, and hundreds of cherry blossoms, February through April. Summer in the garden includes an outdoor concert series, which for all you music lovers, it's awesome. And on Thursday evenings, numerous water features with breathtaking floral displays. In autumn, the Arboretum, September through November, features a nationally acclaimed pumpkin village featuring over 90,000 pumpkins, and named one of the best pumpkin festivals by Fodor's Travel. Also, for all you family people out there, there is a children's adventure garden that's 8 acres, and it was designed with the concept that children in nature. So there's something for everyone there, whether you're just checking things out, whether you love nature, whether you have the family, whether you're looking for a little romantic spot. I highly recommend checking out the Botanical Gardens in Dallas. Another one is the George W. Bush Presidential Library. This was one I really enjoyed. Now, I know I'm not getting political here by any means, but the library itself was designed very well, and it's very interactive. So I found it very interesting. Even if you're not a lover of President George W. Bush, it's a really neat thing to see. They actually have a piece of the towers from 9/11 that is displayed in the library as well. It's a really wonderful exhibit. I learned a lot more. It kind of gives a bigger insight into George W. Bush if you haven't read his books, or someone that follows a lot of politics with them. But it's a great spot to check out if that's your thing. I highly recommend it. It was educational, and it has one of the top rated restaurants there, Cafe 43, which was very good. So if you're a foodie and you're looking for one of the higher rated restaurants in Dallas, Cafe 43 is connected right there with the Presidential Library, and it's wonderful food. I don't know if I could afford to eat there all the time, but it was really great. Speaking of food, if I was going to be eating, and trust me, Texas has lots of great food. If you're looking for steak, they do have a Pappas Steakhouse in Texas. Houston, Pappas is the number one, but they do have one in Dallas as well. So if you find a Pappas Steakhouse and you're in Texas, you cannot go wrong. Some of the best steak you're going to have. Yes, Texans love their meat. I'm not going to lie. Not everyone, but I will say they do steak really well. And not just steak. Texas is known for its Tex-Mex and just a foodie town. Dallas and Houston, we're foodie towns, man. And you're not going to eat any better in the U.S. You're actually going to feel like you gained an insane amount of weight if all you're doing is eating out in Texas, especially in Dallas. So there's so many places I could try to recommend, but you're going to have to do your research and check out reviews online, and whatever your style is, they have it. Whether you like Greek, whether you're vegetarian, whether you love that barbecue, Italian even, whatever your jam is, man, just look online, check out some reviews. You can't go wrong. They're going to have it. Dallas has so many in the area. It's unreal. So check those out. Another place that I think is a lot of fun, if you love taking pictures and you're really wanting that memory, is the Museum of Memories. That's right, the Museum of Memories. It's an interactive art gallery, and it's centered around positivity, creativity, and even nostalgia. And it was designed by Steffi Lin. The exhibit is about an hour long in experience, and it consists of a variety of different art installations and murals and things you can explore. And you can stay in there for hours if you wanted to. your heart's content. And it was intended to inspire childhood memories. So there's lots of exhibits if you like taking those fun childhood pictures where there's giant crayons and, books and things like that you can take with groups, or if you want to feel like a kid again, there's all these murals and places that you can go, and wonderful for the Instagram if you're really into that. It's something that I think anyone would enjoy. And the other thing about traveling to Dallas is that they have two major airport hubs. So no matter where you're going, you're going to stop through Dallas with ease. Let me just tell you that. You can stop through the Dallas Love Airport or the DFW Airport. And those are two places that you can find flights from almost anywhere in the country going into. I promise you that. Now, if you're looking to take a little bit of a side trip outside to Dallas, I'm going to recommend going to Fort Worth. And for those of you that have never heard the phrase the DFW area, which I just mentioned, the DFW airport, it's the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, basically. And Fort Worth is a little bit of a drive. It's probably about I'd probably say a 40-minute drive maybe. Those of you that drive a lot faster than me or a lot slower, it made a difference in time, but just make sure you look at that. But it's not too far outside the way, and it's a really neat place to go. It kind of has more of a smaller town feel to it because you have the stockyards where you can explore Fort Worth and feel like a little bit more, I guess, the quintessential Texas style that people kind of associate with. But it is a wonderful little getaway and a trip. Good eating, small town feel, but a large city. So if you actually want to stay the night, there's plenty of places for hotels that you want to travel over there. But you can absolutely make that a day trip and then make it back to Dallas. And of course, a Dallas area has multiple concerts, sporting events. So if that's your jam, then look into, they have professional basketball, professional hockey, so you have the NHL, the NBA, and of course the home of the Dallas Cowboys. So if you're into football or all those sporting events, make sure you check tickets. You can go to the American Airline Arena, and also concerts. Dallas is known as a big hub for a lot of concerts that come through that, major concerts. So if you're one of those that likes to travel around, you're going to find plenty of places to stay in Dallas and catch that show, and it's just a really great time. Now, I know there are so many different places to stay when you go up there. So if you don't have family or friends you're staying with, look into the hotels. I'm going to recommend one hotel to you guys, the Warwick. Great hotel. It's a moderately priced, so it's kind of in that moderate range. It's not the cheapest place, so if you're looking for an Airbnb or something a little bit cheaper, you might want to look at other accommodations. But I highly recommend it. Wonderful place, very centrally located, and just a wonderful experience. So if you're traveling to Dallas, check out these recommendations you don't want to miss. And coming up, stay tuned for my top 10 Texas myths.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hey guys, welcome back. Brian Chambers here. We were just talking about a trip to Dallas, Texas, and some things that you don't want to miss when going to Dallas. But as promised, I'm going to give you my top 10 Texas myths. That's right. There are so many things that people don't know about Texas or assume when they go. That can be the same for anywhere that you go. But if you're traveling to Texas, these are my top 10 things that people might have heard that are not true. So let's dive right in. Starting with number 10, Texas chili. Number 10, Texas chili does not have beans in it. Many people think that Texas, when they hear Texas chili, it has to have beans in it. I don't know why, but for some reason, Texans don't want to put beans in their chili. So if you get chili in Texas with beans in it, it's not Texas chili. Number 9, Texas is the buckle of the Bible Belt. Let me tell you, that is not true. The state is home to a wide range of religious traditions. Catholics do make up the largest religious population in Texas, but Texas has more Muslims than any other state, and the Speaker of the House is Jewish. So for any of you that thought that this was the Bible Belt down here in Texas, across the state, you would be wrong. There are so many different religions down here. Number 8. This is a big one. And I know many of you are out there are thinking when you hear this that it's absolutely true. But I'm here to tell you it's not. Everyone has a gun in Texas. That is not true. I'm not going to say that there are not a lot of guns in Texas because many people love to have guns in Texas. They love to hunt. You know, they like the handguns. It's a hobby or whatever reason they own firearms in Texas. There are plenty of people that do, but not everyone has a gun. I promise that you're not going to be driving down here and all of a sudden someone's going to have a gun in every car around you. That is a misconception. We're not the Wild West out here. It's just like, it's not Wyatt Earp days. So, just get that out of your brain. Not everyone has a gun in Texas. Number 7. Everyone drives a pickup truck. This one I hear a lot because they ask me, oh, you're in Texas. Do you drive a truck? I don't. I actually don't like driving trucks. It's too big for me. My car is much smaller. I got a 4-door sedan. So everyone does not drive a pickup truck, and a lot of people don't even like driving pickup trucks. In a lot of the major cities, Dallas, Austin, Houston, and even San Antonio, you'll see plenty of trucks in the area, but you're not going to see everyone driving a truck. You're going to see a wide range of cars. Just like any other city, you might see more trucks here than in other northeastern states, but not everyone has a truck, and you'd be shocked how many people assume that everyone drives a truck down here. Number 6, along with that truck topic, I get asked this question as well. Do you ride a horse? Well, guys, let me just tell you, not everyone in Texas rides a horse. I love to ride horses, actually. In fact, I'd ride more often, but my wife is allergic to horses, so we can't ride. But I love to ride horses. But not everyone down here rides horses or knows how to ride a horse. It's not a substitute for a car. Well, the truck's not working, so I better get my horse out and go. No! we get around with lots of public transportation, rails, buses. I mean, trains. It's all there. We fly. You know, we have major airport hubs. NASA is in Houston, for crying out loud. So not everyone down here rides a horse, just as not everyone down here drives a truck. Number 5, Texas is not purely desert. It's always interesting that we get caught in those stereotypes of when we're traveling to a certain region that we think automatically that's what the area is like. And Texas does have deserts, and they do have areas, but the state is so big that they have hill country. They have swamp area in East Texas. It's very green. It's just there's something for everyone. Texas is right on the Gulf Coast, so you have beaches and coastal areas. So there's lots of fishing and things around there. So it's a wonderful, wonderful area that you can explore, but it has almost something for everyone. So you have that desert and national park if you go towards West Texas. So if you're looking for that, I want to see a tumbleweed thing, yeah, then you can go towards Lubbock or West Texas, and I promise, we'll see a tumbleweed. But as you travel farther east, you have hill country, which is gorgeous area where they make wine, just rivers and all kinds of beautiful areas. And then you can keep going east and you get a lot more green area, and even go south and catch the coast right there and go swimming on the beach. So Texas has a lot to offer there. Number four. This one is interesting because it comes back to a history thing. Texas won its independence at the Alamo. That is false. The Alamo was significant for many, many reasons, but it is not where Texas won its independence. Texas actually won its independence in San Jacinto, and there's a big monument. It's not far from Houston, the San Jacinto Monument. The battlefield's still there. So if you think that was what happened at the Battle of the Alamo, then you should go back and check those history books, because that is not where Texas won its independence. Number 3. We're in our top 3 here, all right? Everyone dresses like a cowboy. I don't own a cowboy hat. I don't think I look good in cowboy hats, personally. I don't own a cowboy hat. I have worn boots before, but I don't own a pair of boots. That's just untrue. I can't say it enough. Not everybody dresses like a cowboy. Okay, now, rodeos are a big deal in Texas. I will say that. Rodeos are a big deal. It's a big deal. In fact, Houston has one of the largest livestock show and rodeos around, and Dallas has their own, Fort Worth. I mean, rodeos are a big deal, so I will say that. You will see cowboys, and you will see people that wear cowboy hats and boots and things like that. But in the major metropolitan areas, you're not going to see that as much. You're going to think that you're in an everyday city. So not everyone is a cowboy. Number 2, I wouldn't have believed this one if someone actually didn't ask me this. Everyone has an oil rig in their yard. Guys, that's just not true. Yes, oil is big down here, but it is not the largest industry in Texas. It is one of the bigger industries in Texas, but it's not the largest. And not everyone has an oil rig. If we all had oil rigs in our yard, man, life would be good. Maybe not right now, but with the prices, but life would be much better. No, we don't all have oil rigs. There's suburbs, there's city living, there's everything. Again, there are certain areas where you're going to find oil rigs, but not in everyone's yard. No one has oil rigs in their yard. Who would want to live next to an oil rig with that pumping as you're trying to sleep? I know, right? And my number one, and myth about Texas: only country music is on the radio. That is so not true. Like anywhere else in the country, we love every style of music. In fact, there are some notable artists that are from Texas. And I'm going to throw out 2 names. And I guarantee everyone knows at least one of these names. ZZ Top and Beyonce. That's right. ZZ Top and Beyonce. So those are only two artists of a plethora of artists that come out of Texas. So, and not to mention there's actors and actresses that have been here. It's just not true. There's more than just country music. It's like going to Nashville and saying, is country music the only thing that anyone listens to? No, it's the same thing. Texas has a wide variety of music loves. So those are your 10 myths that are false about Texas. So if you have any myths or things like that I helped clear up, awesome. If you're ever thinking about coming to Texas, check out the recommendations I left for you for Dallas, and you're going to have a blast. And just a reminder, for the latest information on travel during the coronavirus outbreak, visit the websites of the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention and the World Health Organization, or consult your physician or make the best judgment call before taking a trip. We want to make sure that you stay safe and healthy and we get through this crisis as soon as possible. I hope you have been inspired to take a trip this year or look to start planning one. It's never too late to start traveling. It can open our eyes to new experiences, even unlock things about ourselves that we never knew. I believe everyone should travel and explore more of what this world has to offer. It can give us an appreciation and love for so many things.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From travel to health and wellness to entertainment and life and happiness to sex and relationships. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast.